Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my 2023 Football Awards, where today I've been joined by both Saar and Isaac and we're going to be going over 8 football categories and giving out our awards for 2023. Now of course this most likely will be my final video of the year and I wanted to give you guys a tremendous thank you for your support this year. If there was an award for the best fan base out there, I'll try and give it to you guys.
It's enough to make a grown man cry.
But of course, as I'm not Simon Hooper, I will not be wasting any more time in this video, and we're going to be jumping into our first award with the Footballer of the Year. Now, I feel like this title is pretty self-explanatory, as this award goes out to the best footballer for the calendar year of 2023. Now, that's quite an interesting year of football, as there were no major international tournaments, so there's nothing like a World Cup to skew the votes. I'm sorry, Lionel Messi. But of course, to check out our first votes of the video, let's go to Isaac.
Alright, so starting off with my Footballer of the Year, it's gotta be Erling Haaland. I know some of his records translated to the second half of 2022, but there's no denying how incredible of a start he's had to his first season in the Premier League. In just his first season, he's claimed to be the top goal scorer of the league, over players who played in a format with more matches, so to me, he definitely deserves to be the Player of the Year.
Footballer of the Year for me, and I'm not a Manchester City fan, but it's gotta be Erling Haaland. He's been absolutely deadly.
Now, to be honest with you, I tend to agree with both Isaac and Saar here. It has to go to Erling Haaland, breaking the Premier League record that's been standing for what, 30 years now in your first ever Premier League season.
I feel very good.
To pick up 5 trophies with Manchester City as well this year, you have to give it to Erling Haaland. He's been an absolute beast of a footballer, and I would argue that if this award is for the best footballer in the world at the moment, I mean that can only be Erling Haaland. So of course, all 3 of us at the same time, it has to be Erling Haaland. Award number 2 goes to the best young player in world football. Now of course, maybe 7 years older than Gylfi Sigurdsson would like, I put an age limit on 21 years old.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
So of course, this award goes out to the best player under the age of 21, and it just has to be Jude Bellingham. The fact that he's moved from Borussia Dortmund to Real Madrid and has had the impact that he's had in terms of scoring goals, he's almost created a revolutionary position.
That's what she said.
In that team, where he still plays in the midfield, yet he scores goals like a striker. Obviously, when he plays for England, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He was brilliant in the back end of last season for Borussia Dortmund. At the end of the day, it just has to be Jude Bellingham. Although, yes, as a Manchester United fan, I would have liked to mention the likes of Garnacho. But ultimately, I mean, you can't deny it's Jude Bellingham.
Young Player of the Year, that is a tough one, but I'm gonna have to say Jude Bellingham. He's been absolutely fantastic, but Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen, a close second.
Young Player of the Year has to be Jude Bellingham. We've already known about his incredible potential at Dortmund, and he's gone on to be one of the best signings this summer. One of the most clutch players of 2023 for Real Madrid.
Once again, all 3 of us tend to agree on the exact same player. But of course, jumping into our third category, this is where some of us differ a tiny bit as it goes to the best manager of the year.
Manager of the Year has to be Pep Guardiola.
More than you believe I'm happy.
Say what you want about Manchester City already being an incredible team with lots of money, but he's won an insane amount of trophies with them this year, playing some fantastic football throughout. Sure, he started to struggle at the end of this calendar year, but he's not in a position where he can't bounce back.
Manager of the Year is a clear-cut choice for me. It has to be Unai Emery from Aston Villa. What he's done with Aston Villa last season and how Aston Villa is playing this season, it's got to be Unai Emery. You could put Eddie Howe into the conversation with Newcastle, but Newcastle, in comparison to last season, they're kind of struggling this season, so I'm going to give it to Unai Emery.
Good evening.
Now this is quite an interesting category because I do think both Saar and Isaac are correct in their own way. Looking at Isaac's point with Pep Guardiola, obviously if you had to point out the best manager in world football at the moment, it has to be Pep. He's created the deadliest team in world football and brought in the most trophies. Where if you look at Unai Emery though, he's totally transformed a team and has had, dare I say, a bigger impact. Taking a team from a relegation zone battle with Slippy G all the way to, well, competing in European football. At the end of the day, I think I am going to go for Unai Emery, although I could very much go for Pep. Our next category goes to the Breakthrough Player of the Year. Now I do want to remind you guys that this doesn't necessarily mean that this player has to be a young player, but just any footballer who made a name for themselves this year.
Breakthrough Player of the Year, I'm gonna have to go with Victor Boniface. The Nigerian striker really just came out of nowhere from the Belgian league last season, and now this season he's been a key part to Bayer Leverkusen's success so far. He already has about 16 goals and counting with the club so far, I think, so he's got to be my pick.
Breakthrough player of the year. I have a couple players on my mind. One being Serhou Guirassy from Stuttgart. I think that's how you say his name. Serhou Guirassy. Absolutely blistering start. He's scoring at will. And also the second one has to be Dominic Solanke from Bournemouth. He is scoring at will as well. He's got 12 goals in the Premier League currently.
Now, of course, once again, I do agree with both Saar and Isaac. I'm especially proud as someone who lives on the continent of Africa, the fact that there are two African strikers here, both playing in the Bundesliga, and I do think that makes it slightly easier to compare these two players. I do think both Guirassy and Boniface, two absolutely exceptional players, who I do think will make big moves to the Premier League eventually, but ultimately, if I had to choose my breakthrough player of the year, once again, I'd like to mention Garnacho, but I have to mention the likes of Guirassy. The fact that he scored more goals than he's played games in the Bundesliga this season, he's been absolutely lethal. Once again, there are just so many points you could mention about him, and in terms of a player who was non-existent a year ago to being one of the biggest names in world football at the moment, it has to be Guirassy. The next award is a tiny bit more light-hearted. It goes to the funniest football moments of 2023, and to start off things, I'm going to mention Kyle Walker's contract extension video for Manchester City. I'm not leaving! I mean, I myself am a gigantic fan, obviously, of Wolf of Wall Street, and I just think once again the way that they captured it and they got him to remake it. I mean, Kyle Walker, don't get me wrong, you are a brilliant footballer, but don't quit your day job to become an actor.
I'm sorry, Finn. I'm just going to have to throw it out there. It's got to be when Manchester United got demolished by Liverpool 7-0 back in March.
Well, that was a tiny bit unnecessary.
Such an amazing victory for Liverpool. Such a disappointment for United. Funniest moment for me on the top of my head has to be when Kubo threw out that celebration against Athletic Bilbao. Also in that same match, Real Sociedad fans began to synchronizingly celebrate in front of that one Athletic Bilbao fan who was just standing there and smiling the pain away. That match in general just has to be my funniest moment.
Funniest moment or moments of the year has to be around Manchester United. The whole De Gea thing, how they let De Gea go, then they brought in Onana, and Onana let in a bunch of ridiculous goals. If you saw the goals that he let in against Galatasaray, oh my gosh.
Invite these guys to my channel. I think we're friends, and they hurt me. They bully me. I don't know why I did this. Once again, football is a beautiful thing. There are always such incredible moments. There are so many funny moments in the world of football, and it really is something that brings people together. But of course, until what age does it bring people together? As our next category goes to the veteran of the year. Now, in terms of veteran, I consider anyone over the age of 35 to be a veteran, and that is why I've gone for the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. You cannot deny the fact that at almost 40 years old, Cristiano Ronaldo is still a beast. The fact that he was the top goal scorer of 2023 over the likes of people like Harry Kane, like Kylian Mbappe. Once again, Cristiano Ronaldo, he has still got it, still scoring goals for fun, and once again, there really is no one like him. Get him in a laboratory.
For the veteran player, there's so many incredible shouts you can give here. All my bias wants to give it to Luka Modric. He's my favorite player without a doubt, but for 2023, I have to give it to Cristiano Ronaldo. Say what you want about him playing in the Saudi League, but we got to keep in mind he's 38 and he's the top goal scorer of 2023 with 53 goals. Over the likes of Harry Kane and Mbappe. That's enough to convince me he's the veteran of the year.
Veteran player of the year above the age of 35. I would probably have to give this one to Christian Stuani.
That I felt betrayed.
If you remember Christian Stuani, he used to play for Middlesbrough back in the day, but he's been playing for Girona since I believe it's 2017. He's 37 years old, and he's actually still scoring goals for Girona. He's got 6 goals and 2 assists, and he's been a big part of Girona's success this season. So it's got to be Christian Stuani for me.
Jumping into our second final category of the video. Now, of course, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that you can join in by leaving a comment down below on who you think would win every single category. But next up, we've got the international team of the year. Now, of course, I thought this would be quite an interesting category as we haven't had any major international competitions this year, so you won't necessarily just choose a competition winner. But first up, let's listen to Isaac.
International team of the year has to be Portugal. Look at the Euro qualifier group. They're the only team in 2023 to get an 100% win record in Europe. Sure, their opponents were not as difficult on paper compared to some of the other groups many of the top teams had to face. But when you take into consideration that they only failed to keep a clean sheet this year against Slovakia, that's got to be admirable. Portugal is my International Team of the Year.
You could put Argentina into the conversation, of course, because they won the World Cup. But if we're talking 2023, I'm actually going to go completely off the board here, and I'm going to say Kazakhstan. Now,
Great success.
Now, why Kazakhstan? Well, because they had a pretty tough group in Euro 2024 qualifiers, and believe it or not, they can still make the Euros. They're in a playoff coming up this spring. They're going to be in a playoff, and if they win the playoff, they're going to qualify for the Euros. So Kazakhstan has made some brilliant strides in football, and I think they could be the team of the year, maybe the international team of the year.
Now we've got two very interesting picks here. I think if I had to choose one, I'd be very, very close to Portugal, because once again, much like my Pep Guardiola argument earlier, respectively, they probably are the best in the world right now. But I'm going to go for a totally different team with Japan. Obviously, looking at them, I think they're a remarkable team that still go heavily underrated. They are currently 8 games unbeaten at the moment, taking down the likes of Tunisia, Canada, Germany, Turkey. I think the Japanese national team is filled with some absolutely brilliant individuals, and as a team, once again, a super solid unit that people tend to underestimate. But once again, it's quite nice to hear that we've got 3 different countries here. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, to end off our award ceremony for 2023, we've got the Club of the Year, who has been the best footballing club in 2023. And as a Manchester United fan, I absolutely hate to say it, but it has to be Manchester City.
Step back, I think I'm gonna vomit.
As I mentioned earlier with Pep Guardiola, they have been the best team in the world. They've won 5 trophies in all competitions. Once again, Manchester City, they are just the deadliest team in world football at the moment. And if they had to play any top opposition in the world, whether it be a Bayern Munich, whether it had to be a Real Madrid, I think most people would back them at this stage. Winning their first ever Champions League, once again, Pep Guardiola has built such a serious unit of a team. And I hate to say it as a United fan, but it has to be them. Yes, I know they're not top of the Premier League at the moment, but they are still a seriously scary team that no one would like to face.
And finally, Club of the Year, it has to go to Manchester City. I'm not a Manchester City fan, but they won everything. They deserve it. They're a brilliant team. They have a brilliant manager. So the team of the year, Club of the Year, Man City.
Club of the Year, it's gotta be Manchester City. Doesn't feel good to say, but they've simply won the highest amount of trophies, at least in top-tier football, haven't they? They've been terrific nearly every week of the year. Incredible players that just gel so well together. They just have to be the best of 2023. It really pains me to say.
What a sad sight. The fact that there are 3 fans here, none of us support Manchester City, but we all agree that Manchester City is the best in the world at the moment. And as much as I would hate to admit it, that probably is a good sign that they are the best team in the world, when 3 rivals can agree on it. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our 2023 Football Awards. Make sure to check out Sa and Isaac in the description down below. You can go subscribe to their channels, so make sure to do so. And once again, thank you for all your support throughout 2023. I mean, my channel has seriously grown, and it's really shown how much I love doing content like this. So of course, do subscribe down below if you would like to see more content like this, and if you would like me to collaborate with people like Isaac and Sa on a more regular basis. Don't forget to put your award winners down below, and I'll see you all in 2024. Cheers. Bye. Finn, FYNN.